Today we're going to discuss 10 words that are very important to use in CELPIP writing and speaking because you will practically use them, but it's also important in reading and listening in case you don't know these words because they come there very often. Now, the first word is furthermore. If you have seen this channel, you know I love this word because it is advanced. It's not a very simple word, which is a very basic connector like and. It is very highly advanced, and it is also a conjunction or a connector. And that's one thing that I always emphasize people to do because that is the one thing I see missing so often, especially in speaking. I gotta say this because over the last week I was doing a lot of free feedback, which by the way is still available until tomorrow for the next 24 hours. You can email us in the description to get your free feedback on writing and speaking. Now, what I was noticing, and I've noticed this throughout the years, is you guys in speaking sometimes stutter, sometimes you're having awkward pauses, and sometimes you don't pause at all. It's a very long sentence for a whole minute. But just to get rid of that, you need conjunctions, and a very good conjunction to use in almost all cases is furthermore. It is mostly a formal conjunction, so our next one is going to be an informal one, but make sure to connect your points. It also gives you thinking time when you do this, okay? Because when you say furthermore, you can think about the next point you're about to say. It also gives you a break, gives you time to breathe. It has marks for vocabulary as well as fluency and cohesion because all of this is connected. So you get multiple marks by doing conjunctions, so please do them. Now, moving on to another informal one would be plus. Plus is a very simple word. It is also a conjunction, but in informal situations, if you use formal words, connectors, or any vocabulary, you lose marks. So do not think that by using furthermore when talking to a friend, you will gain marks. You're going to lose marks on the tone because we never say furthermore with friends. Okay, so a mixture of informal and formal conjunctions is important to understand. Next, we're going to talk about the range of vocabulary, and this is where we use an adverb, which is called surprisingly. You want to use as many lees as you can. The more lees you use, the more adverbs you are using. And that is important to get your mark for range because in range, we look at a lot of things. Use of nouns, verbs, which you would naturally use. So you don't have to focus on that. But then it comes to adverbs, adjectives, phrasal verbs, idiomatic expressions, and all those things. So we're going to cover this list where it reaches most of those things. So using adverbs, which are defining verbs, quickly, slowly, nicely are great, but surprisingly is something that you can use almost anywhere where it's even not surprising. I can talk about weather today. It's snowing. It's November. There's nothing surprising about snowing in November in Canada. But I could meet my neighbor and say, surprisingly, it's snowing a lot today. And that happens every year, okay? So in CELPIP speaking or writing, you can also use this with expressions. You can talk about, for example, in your informal letter, in the email, in part 1, you can say, surprisingly, I haven't talked to you for a long time. That could be your intro. So using lees will help you get that range of vocabulary that most people miss. Our next one is once again a connector likewise. It is a formal connector. Just want to give you something more than furthermore, so use likewise as well to add more variety. Okay, simple as that, no explanation there. And another informal connector for you guys is also. So I'm going to explain this a little bit more. Also is great when you start new points. You can start a new point, informal one, use also. It's very basic, but that's what you need for informal writing or speaking. But the great thing about this is you can use it easily in the middle of sentences too. For example, there's a lot of work pressure I have these days, including my home duties as well as my new projects from my boss. Also, this would be after a semicolon if you're writing, but if I'm speaking, I'm just going to say, also, the amount of stress is incredible with all of this. Notice here, it's not a new point. I'm not saying stress is a third thing. I'm just saying it is a part of the work and the home stuff I have to do. So I'm just putting it in the same idea, same sentence, and just extending it by adding also. And here you don't need to use and, which is great because you should stay away from and as much as possible. Use more complex conjunctions and connectors, but it helps you combine multiple sentences using these kinds of connectors. And what that does is, if you know the importance of this, it makes the sentence complex. And you have marks, a lot of marks, for complex sentences. So the longer they are, the more points you have, the multiple points you have in one sentence, you get the marks for using complex sentences. And using a word like also helps you do that. It can even help you in the formal writing or speaking. I prefer you use more complex connectors there, but if you have to add just a little point at the end, that's how you can do it. Also, just blends in everything easily. All right, so next one is conspicuously, which means apparently or obviously. The only struggle here is you have to learn the spelling of this. So once you do, use it because it's once again a li. It is an adverb. And I just tell people to memorize these adverbs because in the exam, people forget to use them because you're going to speak naturally. You're not going to think, okay, a range of vocab, right? So it's better to memorize it. Memorize using conspicuously at the start of sentences, paragraphs, maybe the start of speaking at least once or twice in your 8 questions, total, not in every question. And using conspicuously could be, of course, helpful, of course, in the range of vocab, but it could be used in a sentence like, conspicuously, this is not what the town's population want, they prefer option B. For example, you're doing this in task 2, writing. So it's something where you are pointing out something which is obvious or understood. You use your word conspicuously. It's complex as well, so you get marks for advanced usage of vocabulary. On top of that is a connector, but how is it different than everything else that I have mentioned? It is almost a phrasal verb because it has multiple words, 4 words there. So again, this shows the examiner that not only can we use single-worded conjunctions, we can also use 4-worded conjunctions, which is a phrase basically, to connect our ideas. There are multiple examples of this. You can use based on, you can say considering the above to conclude, right? Given that, so using multiple words as connectors is also a good variety you throw at the examiner after using a bunch of single-worded connectors. Next one is not only. So we know, again, the importance of complex sentences. You need complex sentences in writing and speaking to score a 9 or more. Using not only helps you say so many things so quick, and I like this in part 5 speaking because that is where you have to use all the points on your side and all the points of the other side in a minute. So using not only helps me say so many things at once, okay? For example, think about saying a sentence like, I need to work out today and really eat healthy stuff. And after I am done with that, I also need to make sure I check my calories. Look at how many words I used. Now, let me use not only. Not only do I need to check my calories, I also got to work out today. Summarized it. Everything is summarized. You can save your words. You can save your time in speaking and words in writing, by the way. And I'm making this a complex sentence. Not only is breaking the sentence into 2 parts, and that makes it complex, giving you more marks for that. Okay, so use not only. Nonetheless, and I'll give you a bonus word, nevertheless. All right, use these 2 words, nonetheless or nevertheless, instead of however. There are going to be obviously times when you want to say but. Instead of but, however is better, but even better than however is nevertheless and nonetheless. Use these words. They are, again, good connectors. You can even use them in the middle of sentences by putting a semicolon, nevertheless, comma, and that makes it a complex sentence. And when you're speaking, you just say it. You don't use the semicolon. Just pause, nonetheless, comma, and then you pause and go on. So using this is, again, way more advanced than saying but or however. Finally, this is a simple one. This is not advanced at all. The 10th advice, or the word I'm going to give you, is 2 words. For instance. For instance, for example, just helps you elaborate and describe your topic all the better. We use this, right? But a lot of times people miss this. And once again, I have noticed this in my last week's feedback that I have been giving students. One comment I always say is, you're not descriptive enough. Like, people would give one sentence or a short sentence about one thing. You have to expand, in most cases, on what you're talking about. You have to explain the why and how behind it. And we're going to talk about elaboration more on this channel this week, so please subscribe if you haven't already. But you have to, when you expand your ideas, for instance and for example are great words to expand it. And I prefer for instance because for example is very common. So using for instance helps you in expanding the idea. It's a great connector and it adds the flow because you have something, then you say for instance, you define that thing. So it breaks it down nicely. So use these 10 words or phrases and add to your range of vocab, expressions, advanced connectors, advanced vocabulary, complex sentences. These words do all those things for you. Simply memorize them, practice them, write them, and say them when you're practicing your speaking. And I hope this video helps out. If it does, please subscribe, like, and share. I'll talk very soon. Take care.